Hello. I have the privilege of spending time today with Dyan Lane of the Deanna and Diane real estate team at John L. Scott. I've had the opportunity to work with you guys many, many times over my career. My experience and customers' experiences have always been so top notch. And I admire you guys on so many levels. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your team structure.
Sure.
And then I'd also like to hear kind of what you guys specialize in as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a team of four. Our senior person, which is so weird, like I don't even know if you're allowed to say that. Our most experienced person has been Deanna has been in the market for 26 years, and then I've been doing it 16 years, and then Brittany, who's with our team, is at 6 years, and then Serena just officially joined our team, and I think she's has about 10 years of experience. So I think the one thing that separates us from a lot of teams or dynamics is we work all of our clients together, which, as you kind of hinted at, makes the process, I think, a little more streamlined so that you actually have four people working for a client at all times. So you have, different people looking at things in different lights or in different strategies. And if I'm missing something, some of the other girls are like, well, have we thought about this idea? So it makes it for a very creative environment, but also very, very structured, where the client gets the what we like to call the highest caliber of service. Whereas if someone's, has a sick kid or an anniversary to celebrate, they are still getting that break without the client feeling like, oh my gosh, where did everyone go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys do an amazing job. I feel like you never skip a beat. I mean, the team does such an amazing job at picking up, filling any potential holes. There are no
Yes.
holes.
Yes. I agree. I think it's because we don't assign people specific tasks. We want everyone on our team to be very well rounded and to succeed. It doesn't mean that some people aren't better at other things, but there's a lot of growth that continues to happen. And I think that keeps your career, more exciting. And the client can feel that because there's not so much like repetitiveness and rapport and like, what would you say, pattern repetition. And so I think so far it's worked out really well for us the past 16 years, and I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah. How did you get into real estate?
Deanna, my business partner, recruited me from another career. My husband and I were just started our family. Our daughter was like 3, and I was really struggling with my current career and trying to figure out like how do I balance all of that. And Deanna's business had blossomed, and she either had to decide to start turning away business or to create a team to kind of support her. And I was like, "You're crazy. I should never go into sales." And she's like, "It's not sales. You're really good with people." And
Yeah.
she knew I genuinely cared and would never like choose a commission over a client.
Uh-huh.
And, 16 years later, I have to say she saw something in me I probably didn't know existed when I was 16 years younger.
Well, it's very clear you guys have been an extremely dynamic duo. So I love that she called
Oh,
that out in you and kind of
yeah,
helped you
me
believe it
too.
too.
Me too.
I want to talk about just some things in this market. We've definitely seen some challenges, but I don't know that there's ever been a period of time in real estate when there haven't been certain challenges to navigate,
True.
right?
Yeah.
But I wanna address specifically the challenge of buying a new property when you have one to sell. So I'm sure you have a lot of customers who are in that similar situation. So can you speak to what makes it so difficult to buy a new home when you have one that you already own?
Yeah, I think the most difficult scenario is if a client has to sell in
Mhm.
order to purchase that new property. And a lot of times it's twofold. One, it's a stress level. Buying a house, regardless what anyone tells you, is very stressful, no matter how many times you've done it, even if you're just moving 2 blocks down.
Yeah.
So when you're combining the sale and the purchase at the same time, that can kind of put people in more of a heightened state of stress. And as we all know, especially as we age, sometimes you don't make the best decisions in that stress environment. And so for us, what's very, very important is that we get a clear picture on why you're moving and what the new property is going to provide that the current property does. And the reason we really hone in on that at the beginning, I think some clients are like, oh my gosh, why do you need to know all these answers? And it's so that we can be your invisible board of directors and ask you when stress is high. Now remember, you told me these were the three things why you were moving, and this new house has none of those things. And you
Yeah.
might say, well, I have come to determination that those three things don't matter anymore. But we like to remind you of why you contacted us in the first place. The other thing that can hinder a sale when you're going to buy is the timing. So, you have, let's say they have to sell to purchase. So we need these funds, but we don't know the house that you're buying yet. And so we try to be really strategic on timing of selling the house and how hard is it going to be to find the replacement property and just kind
Mhm.
of talk to you about like, I think long-term goals. So are you open to staying in a rental for a few months so that we can really find you 80% of what you're looking for? Luckily we pair with you a lot. And I think there's a lot of lending possibilities that weren't there, 15, 12 years ago, even like pre-COVID, that you guys, I think the lending world is catching up with what is
Mhm.
occurring, which most people have to sell to buy, and they want to. And so having a lending partner is like instrumental, where it's like we can call you and say, okay, this is what we're up against. What aren't we seeing? Are there other avenues to kind of lower this stress side? You know, I call it a bridge loan. I know you guys don't call it that anymore. Where it's like, okay, let's take a moment and pause and see if we can find you what you're looking for and then sell the house. That to me is probably the two prongs of why sometimes selling and buying, the stress level, and then making sure you're not making a knee jerk reaction to
Mhm.
purchase something that doesn't suit you in the first place.
I think you're so wise to get really, really clear on what their goals are. And I love that you call yourself the board of directors. I think that's huge because, like you said, I mean, the fact that you can kind of point them back to the things that they shared with you as their goals, because you're right, like it is such an emotional process of buying a home. So I love that you can create those guardrails for them. So can you walk us through a recent success story where you helped someone navigate this process?
Yeah, it's probably a little different than what you would think. So we had a new couple come to us. One had lost her spouse and I think they had only been together a few years, and they decided, they wanted to sell these two properties and purchase something together. And after we went and looked at both of their properties, and after we sat down with them and looked at their goals and what they wanted to purchase together, it was very clear one of the houses was already that house. It just needed to be tweaked. And so, they ended up doing an equity line, did the changes to the house, and then we only just sold the one partner's house. And still today, they're like, I cannot believe that you picked up on that this house actually what we were looking for. It just was missing 20% of what we needed. And so I think it just goes back to like, you need people to see things that you don't see. And just because you have a plan, sometimes you're missing a component of it. And in that case, it was you don't need to sell both to go find something. You already have the something. You just need to tweak it.
Yeah.
We also had another incident recently where it was a family that had outgrown their house, and so they definitely wanted to sell. They needed to purchase something else, but the timing was off. And so we ended up having to have kind of like a hard conversation, which is you've outgrown this house. You cannot purchase without selling this house. And they were finally able to wrap around their mind around like, let's go and move into a rental. Let's sell this house, move into the rental, and then find exactly what we need, because we were getting beat out on so many offers because of the contingency sale. And so I think it's, in our mind, it's more of like in 5 years, we want you to look back and say that was a good decision. It may not have been the easiest decision, but it was the correct decision.
Mhm.
And just being able to have rapport with our clients to have those conversations, I think is night and day because they kind of understand like we genuinely care about you and your future. But it is, I have to say, 16 years, this market is reminding me of when I entered the market in the sense you are seeing sellers more open to contingent offers. So
Mhm.
it's not necessarily that you have to make these catastrophic, I'm going to go rent or I'm going to live in a hotel. We may be able to, combine the sale and the purchase. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a needle in the haystack, and everyone else is going to want that property, that seller's probably not going to wait for you to sell. But again, then it's like, okay, let's connect with the lender. Let's see what kind of other possibilities you have because I think a lot of people just say I'm stuck here. This isn't this isn't working for me, but there's nothing else for me to do. And I think that's the error is find a professional where you can feel comfortable telling them, "This is what's going on in my life. What
Mhm.
am I missing? What else can I
Yeah.
do?" Versus being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm stuck," and not tapping into people that can actually see the bigger picture for you.
Yeah. I love both those examples. In the first one, I think it speaks volumes about your character because,
Yeah.
I mean, you stood to gain 2 sales, right?
Mhm.
Like, by
3
listing
really.
both properties.
Yeah.
You could have
Yeah.
made more money, right?
Yeah.
But I love that you were keeping the client's best interests at heart, and
Mhm.
instead of "Yeah, you should totally sell that property," I love that you encourage them to think about it differently and that you were
Mhm.
really invested in their goals. That speaks
Thank you.
volumes. And then in that second scenario, I think you did mention that when people own a home and they need to sell it first to buy another one, there are creative financing options. And the reality is that sometimes those options just they don't exist for everyone, right? So maybe that's
Exactly.
the case for this particular family, but I love that you were able to have the hard conversation and it probably took some time. I appreciate that you're willing to have those challenging conversations and help people understand this is what's going to be required if you want what you're telling me that you want.
Yes.
What's your approach to helping clients stay calm during all of this? I mean, as we discussed, it's highly emotional. So how can you help them?
I think what we like to do in the beginning is try to get a good understanding of their personality and like
Mhm.
how do they like to be communicated with. There's definitely times where, I think there's a time and a place to communicate with clients. And a lot of times we're resolving stuff without the client even knowing. It's not putting them in any type of harm or doing any disservice. But I'm sure you come across that at the lending side where someone comes down from the top and they're like, "Oh my gosh, these 2 documents." And you're like, "Whoa, I'm not just going to call the client for these 2 documents. I'm going to go back to my file. Here's are the documents." And so we just kind of try to filter out as much stress as we can and then to just remind them like, remember this is going to be stressful, but what remember your goals were A, B, and C. This is how we're going to get there. And
Mhm.
I think just also reminding them like this is stressful. Give yourself
Mhm.
grace because I think a lot of people don't realize it. And then we'll be 3 weeks into escrow and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm not keeping up." And it's like reminding them, like, this is one of the top 10 stressors in your life. And then they kind of, I think when you can identify that stress, it's easier for you to be like, okay, I understand now why I'm acting like this or why I'm kind of like my bandwidth is really tight.
Mhm.
But because we close on average anywhere from 80 to 120 transactions a year, we have a good baseline on how to move things from start to finish and to just say, this is normal. Yes, this is a normal thing to ask for in a repair addendum. Yes,
Yeah.
this is normal. Andrea's asking you for this document because a lot of people haven't purchased a house in 10 years. And so it's amazing what the brain forgets. And so just reminding them like this is part of the process. And I think just telling them anytime you're worried, anytime you have a question, there's no dumb question, just call us. And oftentimes by the end of the conversation, they're like, I wish I would have called you 3 days ago. I've been losing sleep over this. I shouldn't have been. And so we try to remind them of that during the escrow period that we are still here even after closing. You know, we want to be a part of your team even after you close on the house, whether that's purchasing or selling.
It sounds like you do an amazing job at setting expectations from the beginning. I love that you don't sugarcoat it. It's not like you're telling people, "Oh, it'll be a piece of cake, no big deal." I think that you do such a great job of saying, "This is going to be challenging. This is going to be stressful, and we're here. Like, let us shoulder the stress for you."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How do you educate your clients on current market conditions and timing of everything?
I think the best thing that we've learned is it's best to have specific examples. And because we have so many transactions, that's easy for us to go into our arsenal. But also, like, especially as sellers, is to say, hey, these are the 8 other properties you're competing with. Can you put on a buyer hat and see, like, okay, this is how my house compares to A, B, and C? And that kind of helps them realize not only like how long are these properties taking to sell, but also, oh my gosh, I'm priced optimistically because this other house blows me out of the water and it's still sitting there. And so I think that that has really helped us kind of to build confidence with the client because they want to get the most that they can out of their property and they should. But just reminding them like, okay, look at this property. It sat on the market for 4 months and it slowly reduced the price over and over again versus if they just trimmed all the fat at the beginning, they would have closed for more. And so, in our experience, it's more of like how we want to give the client as much accurate information as we can without overwhelming them, but also so they can make the best informed decision moving forward that's best for them. Every client's situation is different, every motivation factor for them to sell. And I would rather just be upfront and say, you know, this is what I think your house will sell for and then make the decision based on that information versus what we call buying the listing, which
Yeah.
is I'll give you whatever number you would like to hear so that I can get a new listing and procure buyers. More than likely, the house is never selling.
Hmm.
And then it's nice too because then we go back to our market analysis and we say, okay, we've been on the market this long. Remember how we said we didn't think your house was worth this? We tried it. And they're like, you're right. Let's make that adjustment. Let's make that price readjustment. You know, the market is really healthy despite what the media would say. It is a very active, healthy market. We
Hmm.
have tons of people that are reinvesting in the Rogue Valley, so selling here and repurchasing. So it just comes down to do you want to sell? And if you do, you just have to price it where it fits in the market.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems like the most critical piece. I
It
love that
is.
you use the diplomatic phrase of pricing optimistically. With regard to listings, how do you make sure that your listings stand out? So, especially, I guess, in light of the idea of people wanting to purchase another property, so probably wanting to sell their property pretty quickly. What do you do to help it but move more quickly?
Yeah, so once someone has committed to working with our team, we go back through and kind of will guide them on getting the house ready for the photographs. You know, we definitely, a lot of people think that they need to make it as sparse as possible, which the nice part about our team is we represent half sellers and half buyers. So we know what the buyers are asking when they come into the property. We know what they're looking at. And in Southern Oregon specifically, buyers want to buy into a story. So this idea of just making it as neutral and sparse as possible, it doesn't get the emotional feel that you want from a buyer, which is for them to walk up to your pictures and say, "Oh my gosh, look at she's raised her 3 kids here and look at them in the pool." So stuff like that will kind of guide you on how to pare that down without making it feel sterile. And then, you know, we hire a professional photographer depending on, you know, what the product is. We'll do drone photos, we'll do, you know, a video walkthrough. We kind of just talk to the client on our marketing plan and what has and has not worked. And then a lot of it is about just networking. So we're still a very, very small town. You have to make a lot of phone calls, you have to call people back. And I think that's been the biggest catapult for our team is we're very approachable. We never kill the messenger. New brokers are welcome to call us with any questions. We're happy to meet you out there to show the property and just being kind of an open book. And that seems to have really, really benefited our clients in the long run.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's your approach to helping clients find the right new home while they're prepping their current one for sale?
Yeah, that's a great question. Depending on a client's clarity on what they want to find, sometimes we actually need to take them out before we list the property because it's like, okay, the partners aren't having clear communication. Honestly, I mean, I've been married 25, almost 25 years. You think you're being clear with your partner, and then you get into the house and you're like, this is not an open kitchen. And he's like, yeah, it is. And you're like, no, it's not. So that has really helped us and just like, hey, let's just go look at these three properties. Let's see how you interact. I don't really understand what you're talking about a shop. Is the shop in the garage?
Mhm.
And then even if we can just get them into 4 or 5 properties, it becomes pretty clear on what they're looking for, if we're going to be able to find it, if their budget is going to be able to afford it. And then we just start having those conversations. And the reason I think that's so important is the worst thing to do is to sell something that's no longer suiting you to figure out there's nothing out there that suits you better. And so just to make sure like, okay, yes, I'm very sure I want to sell this and I can afford what I'm going to want to replace it with. And then John L. Scott, the company we work for, is the #1 company in the Valley. And I think that networking helps tremendously. And so trying to find, there's a lot of people right now that want to sell. They're just not on the open market because they too don't know where they're going. So just kind of networking like, hey, we have these buyers coming up. This is what they're looking for. Is there anything that you could get a listing on just for this specific client? And that's worked out really well. What's interesting right now is our inventory levels are up, which isn't historically correct for October. And I believe personally that's just because so many people have been on the fence about the interest rates. And now they're like, this is it. This is what I have to deal with. And so now is actually, there's a lot more things for us to show buyers, which is helpful. But before, when the inventory levels were really low, that networking was super important.
Having worked with you many times, I know that that is your strategy in terms of helping clients identify a new property. I love that you are so encouraging of them to look at 4 or 5 homes before they make a decision. I think that again, that speaks to you're not looking to make a quick sale. You're looking
Mhm.
to make sure it's the right fit for them. So
Mhm.
I'm sure there have been many times when you've shown a property and it's been the first one and the client has said, yep, this is it. And I love that you still are like, you know what, before you make up your mind, let's make sure and go check out these other
Yeah.
properties just to be certain that's the one.
Yeah, I
I think
think our
there's a lot
last
of wisdom
mutual
there.
client, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I love it. It's true.
Um, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they're thinking of buying and or selling?
Yeah, we have a great Google phone number that actually goes to all 4 team members, which is awesome. So if someone's tied up for a couple hours, you're not like, oh my gosh, is anyone working today? We love all communication styles. So I know some people love texting, some people like phone calls, some people like face to face, Zoom. Like we just really want to come along the client's communication style and make sure that they're feeling comfortable. And I think the #1 thing that is so important and dear to my heart is you don't have to call us and be committed. Like, we would love to bounce ideas off of you. We would love to just kind of hear about what's going on in your life. And it's definitely, I think unfortunately a lot of people see the real estate world as like the car industry. And if you pair yourself up with the right broker, you're not going to feel like that. It's not salesy. It's not like you can't leave the lot until you buy a house. We've worked with people for years before they've actually purchased a home. And
Yeah.
we actually last year were written into 2 people's will that they want us specifically to sell their property. And we've never worked with these people. Just for the last 5 years, we helped guide them with their estate, with what to do to the property to help their family when they inherit it. And
Mm.
that's just kind of like, I guess, our love language. We do love to be of service and to help people, and that's my favorite part about this career is just
Mhm.
coming alongside people in their current chapter, whatever that is, without them feeling like they're getting advice to benefit someone else besides themselves.
It seems like one other kind of misunderstanding that people may have about you guys being that you've been in the industry for so long, you've been so successful, you've represented people on the, on the entry level all the way up to luxury. But I think there's the misunderstanding that maybe at this point in your career, you're only looking to help those who are really established and in a higher end.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
It it kills me. I mean, it just breaks my heart. It's interesting to me, and I don't know if that's, a misnomer about high producers. And we do get that even from past clients, like, "Are you too busy?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, no." But I love the saying, "If you want something done, ask a busy person, they'll get it done." I wish we could do a better job of saying no client is not important enough, no property is not of higher value. Like, we
Mhm.
definitely love to provide the same level of service to no matter what you need. So thank you for bringing that up. It's unfortunate that people feel like that because if you would just call us, you would know that's not true.
Yeah. And I mean, I can speak to that for sure because I know we've helped clients together where it's been on both sides of the spectrum, very entry level, lower purchase price home
Mhm.
versus, the higher, more luxury estates. And I can definitely tell that you guys provide the same level of service and
Mhm.
care regardless of the price point.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any final words of encouragement for people who might feel overwhelmed by the idea of buying or selling?
Yeah. I think for me, I've learned as I age that a lot of uncertainty and stress comes with lack of knowledge. And so, obviously we have AI tools, we have all this information at our fingertips, which is so different than when we were children. But I think there's a lot of things missing from that component, which is the human interaction, specific stories. AI will not know the questions to ask you that we will ask you to make sure that now is the time to sell or buy. And just to not feel like I can't make the phone call because I don't know what I'm doing. You're not supposed to know what you're doing. We're supposed to ask you questions to help you obtain that knowledge. And so if you find a good professional that you feel comfortable with, that stress or that clarity will come. The clarification will come on what you need to do. And sometimes I think we just sit there and be like, well, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
Mhm,
Instead of being like, well, let me find someone that can help me to figure out
mhm.
what to do. And a lot of people don't know what to do, especially when it's the biggest purchase that most people do in their entire lives. And so it is meant to feel overwhelming, but if you align yourself with someone that's really cares about your next steps, you'll have a lot of peace about it. And that's what I would encourage people to do is even if you're like, man, I don't know how long I should hold on to this house or onto this rental, or I'm sitting on some cash and want to know is now the right time to start my investment portfolio. All of
Mhm.
that our team would love to connect with people about. And then sometimes that meeting goes nowhere and they leave and they're like not ready.
Yeah.
And I love that too because that is part of helping people. It's not always going to benefit the team.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that. I have witnessed it, that you're definitely not in this for a quick sale. You're in this for the long haul. You're in this to serve your customers. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you
Well, we
for
appreciate
chatting.
you. Yeah. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.